guys, I just taught the entire lesson and I didn't record it on Google Meet like a dingus. So I'm now recording a screencastify for you guys. That way you guys have the information. Granted, the video will be a lot shorter because I'm not talking to the one person that showed up. And I guess you just won't get as many of my stories. And you didn't get to see my rabbit. So anyway, moving on. Okay, so you guys should be on this page, Intro to American Born Chinese. You're going to start by opening up the Google Slides and reading the agenda. Please make sure you're reading the agenda for every single assignment. Really, if you don't want to read the essential questions and the goals, you just need to look at this. This is everything you need to do. It's like a checklist. So the first thing you need to do is complete the do now on the next page. Then there's a vocab sheet. And then you were supposed to wait until today so that way you could join the Google Meet and get the notes. Okay, so the do now on the next page is what do you know about China? So think of as many things as you can and write them down, and we'll move on. Okay, so I'm going to do the guided notes first, so that way we can knock those out of the way, and then we will do the vocab. Okay, so the guided notes are this top one. You're going to click on it, and you're going to follow along with me. Doop-a-doo-ba-doop-a-doo. Okay, so we are going to start reading American Born Chinese. It is about, it's a graphic novel, so we'll kind of go over how to read a graphic novel and strategies for analyzing a graphic novel. But first, we're going to begin with some background on China and on immigration into China immigration from China into the U.S. and the history of that. So first things first. The first couple of slides, you will not need to write anything down. It's just kind of me going over it. So this is a map of Asia. Normally when we talk about Asia, we think about like these areas. So we think about Japan. We think about, what? Oh, there we go. We think about Japan, we think about Korea, and we think about China. But in reality, Asia consists of Russia and Japan. So it consists of all of those, except also Russia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand and Cambodia, India. Sorry, my cat's here. And Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. So there's way more to Asia than you might think, is the point here. So this is a more broken down map. So the area we're going to kind of be focusing on is China. China is huge. China is right here. It is gigantic. It's so big, in fact, that for a while they had a one-child rule. So, sorry, she's distracting me. A one-child rule. So that meant that in a family, the family could only have one child, and that was it. That was your limit. You can't have two, you can't have three, only one. That's it. They used to be a bunch of different, like, smaller kind of countries, and then they eventually expanded to be one big one. So there's a lot of variety in moving from place to place in China. So you can go from a very populated city to a very rural, like farmland that's very poor and desolate. You can also find electronic dumping grounds in China, because that's how nice we are to them, is we just dump stuff on China. Okay, moving forward. So this is where the notes begin. I'll put myself up here. Okay, so differences between Asian countries. So we're going to start on this side. So on your notes sheet, it should look like this. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Maybe I can make me smaller. Ooh, look at that. Okay, great. So now you get a tiny me. Okay, so People's Republic of China is where we're going to start. I am going to try to pronounce this, but I don't really know Chinese pronunciation. So Songhua Renmin Gonghe Guo. Maybe. Sure, we'll say that's close enough. Okay, so their government is a people's republic. So they have a president and a vice president and a premier. So that there's a head of state and there's a head of government. They are a communist government, which is different from the U.S. Communism kind of says that the power should be with the people, the citizens, and that everyone should get equal pay. So it's supposed to mean that everyone in the country will get the same amount of money no matter what. So a doctor and a trash man would get the same money. However, I'm pretty sure that's not the way China functions. I'm not an expert though, so I just kind of pulled some comparisons. So one of the big things that they can do is they can censor their people, and the government controls most things. Like the government. So like, whereas in the US, individual states will control different things to limit the power of the president, in China, the president and the premier have the power. They can tell different states and provinces what they can and cannot do. So like, whereas right now in our crisis, Trump can't tell states that they need to shut down schools, China can. China could be like, every single state in the or every single province in China needs to shut down their schools right now. The US can't do that because we give power to individual states. Censorship means that like the government can control what you can and cannot see online. So for a while in China, Facebook was not available. You could not have a Facebook. It just didn't exist on the internet. Couldn't get one. There are things on Google that people in China can't Google and search for. Nothing will come up. So they limit what you can see. Their language is called Mandarin Chinese. That's the majority of the country. There's another language called Cantonese, but there are then in each category in Mandarin and Cantonese, there's dialects below that. And the dialects make the languages so different that people from two different provinces might not be able to talk to each other except in a very like traditional Mandarin. Very interesting. They are mostly Buddhist, and they have 20% of the world population. They're huge. The US only has about 4.25% of the world population. China is number one. They have the most people in the whole world. Okay, in comparison, Japan or Nippon, their government is constitutional monarchy, so very similar to how England functions with a queen and a prime minister. They have a symbol of state as well, which is an emperor, and then the head of government is a prime minister. So in similar fashions, the emperor and the queen for Japan and England, respectively, don't really have like really serious power. They have kind of more of a traditional rule. So the prime minister will say like, we're going to pass this law. Do you approve of this law? And the symbol of state will always say yes for the most part. Like it's a very rare time when they don't say yes. Or the new prime minister will be elected and the symbol of state has to say, yes, you are elected. It's like that. In a similar fashion with the queen, like the queen or the king or whoever's the symbol of state is an older version of their government. So the emperor is an older version of the government. Very similar. The language of Japan is Japanese. It's adapted from the Chinese writing system, and it has 3 different alphabets. So there's hiragana, there's katakana, and there's kanji. So hiragana is the like Japanese writing system. Like, this is what they came up with. These any words in that written in that alphabet is Japanese. Like, it came from Japan. If it's written in katakana, it would be things that are written that are kind of taken from other languages, but fitted into Japanese. So things like hamburger, hambaga in Japan. And then kanji looks the most like Chinese. It looks the most like Mandarin. So it's used for more symbolism or for breaking up a sentence to make it make more sense. Yeah. Okay, so they're mostly Buddhist as well. They're a very densely populated country. So they're an island. If you were to look at that map again, there's that little island that comes off the edge. That's Japan. They have they're 10th in world population. They have a lot of people in that little country. When I went, everything's kind of condensed. So all of the houses are kind of more like townhouses. There's not like big backyards really. And your driveways are pretty close to your house. So people would have their cars parked like if this is the front door, then the driveway goes like this to the house. And then your car gets parked like this. Kind of like if you were to parallel park on a street. It's kind of what it looked like. Okay. Moving on. So the next one is North Korea. So they're called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I don't know how to pronounce Korean, so I'm not even going to try. Their government is a unitary single-party republic with one legislative house. They're a dictatorship. They're a dictatorship. There's no real elections. It's Kim Jong-un is the government. And his dad before him was the government, and his dad's dad was the government. Like, that's it. It's just them. They control everything. Their language is Korean. It might be related to Japanese. They're trying to make it strictly Korean without any outside words. So how I said in Japan, they have like loan words. So they'll take words from like English and they'll make it fit into Japanese. In North Korea, they're trying to take that out of Korean. So that way there's no Western influence. There's no other influence on their language. So they say that they practice freedom of religion, but they really don't. They really don't encourage religion at all. They'd rather people just kind of worship the state and Kim Jong-un. They're 51st in world population. They're kind of small. Oh, okay, last country. So the last country is South Korea. So they're the Republic of Korea. Their government is a multi-party republic, so kind of similar to the US, where there's like Democratic, Republican, Green Party, Independent, such and so on. They have a president who is assisted by a prime minister, so also kind of similar to the US, where there's a president and a vice president. Their language is Korean, maybe related to Japanese. However, they will use loanwords from other languages, including English. They have a lot of different religious influences. They practice shamanism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. If you ever look into any of these kind of Eastern Asian religions, they're pretty cool. I've been to a Buddhist temple. I was Buddhist for a little bit. I'm just kind of nothing now because but these are Taoism and Confucianism are more like guiding principles for your life. There's no like, if you do these things, there will be an afterlife. Buddhism has an afterlife, but Taoism and Confucianism don't. They're just kind of like how to be a good person while you're alive. It's kind of nice. They're 29th in world population. So They have way more people than North Korea does. Okay, so these are just kind of comparing the languages together. So Korean has these like circle things, and they're a little more like blocky and stiff. So they're like straight lines and circles. Japanese and Chinese end up being a little more similar because because Japanese uses these kanji symbols. So they have similar kanji symbols. So you can see these little gate things. Check it out, gate things. They're there too. So that's where the kanji comes from. The kanji symbols, these guys, come from Chinese. This is katakana. This is a English word, I think. I don't remember the alphabet very well. And then this is hiragana, these guys, these more curvy cues. So the katakana is more like straight lines, and then this guy is more curly cues. You absolutely don't have to remember this. This was just like an interesting thing for me to show you. Okay, so you should have pictures of 3 different outfits. So this is Korea. Period. This is North and South Korea. They wear the same things. They used to be one country until they broke apart. So a lot of the traditional garb and traditions are similar because they were once one unified country. So they're kind of more like flowy. They have this very high up like line, like above the like breast line, like it's on your chest. And then they have this little ribbon thing, which I think is really cute. The wealthier people will wear petticoats, like the really puffy skirts to make your dress puff out, as a symbol of their wealth. Okay, so this is China. So this is a qipao. This is a modern kind of version of the qipao. There are much more traditional versions of the dress. So like older women probably like wouldn't wear something like this. They'd wear something that's more flowy and straight lined. In comparison, the men would wear something like this, which is like, I think this is so cool. A big part of it is this collar. It's like a high collar with this curving in. She has something very similar. And then these clasps, which are pretty much just like an elastic. So it's like an elastic curve, and then there's like a button, and then you take that and you take the elastic and you put it over the button, so that way they like connect together. Can't with my hands. So this is China. And finally, Japan. So there's a Japanese kimono. This version is a yukata. It's worn in the spring and summertime because it's lighter. Traditional Japanese kimonos are silk. So they're silk, and you wear a light like robe underneath of it to keep you warm. So it's heavy. It's heavy and it's thick. And the sleeves of the traditional Japanese kimono come down further than this. So it will actually come down more to like here, like several inches longer. So the yukata is lightweight. Like this was made out of like cotton and polyester. And I wore like a tank top and shorts underneath, like easy. And then little shoes that were too small for my feet because my feet are big. And the men's version is very similar. It's pretty much the same thing. Side note, if you ever wear a yukata or a kimono, you have to fold over this way. When a body is prepared for funeral viewing, it is folded the other way. So if you wear your kimono the wrong way, it kind of represents the dead, and it's disrespectful. So it's always right and then left. Left side goes over the right side. If it's the other way, you're dead. So don't do that. Okay, quick facts about China. Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world, is in China. Many people who live in China will speak different dialects of Chinese. They are so different that people from 2 different regions can only speak in traditional Mandarin in order to understand each other. Of the whole country, only 50% can communicate effectively in Mandarin. I actually worked with a couple of people when I worked at a hibachi restaurant who spoke not Mandarin but Cantonese and a specific dialect of Cantonese. And so when they would speak to other people that they worked with at the restaurant in Mandarin, they would get made fun of because their Mandarin was bad. they didn't speak Mandarin very well. So things like that would happen all the time. And Canton, only a very small portion of China speaks Cantonese. They are a communist country, but they hold elections for politicians who are well backed by its citizens. And the government does restrict freedom of speech and is able to punish citizens for speaking out against the government. And they do. They do it rather often. Sometimes famous people will say something that's against the government in some way, and then they go missing for like 2 months, and then they finally reappear and they apologize for the things they said. So like kind of scary stuff happens. One woman went missing because she graffitied a poster of a politician. Like stuff like that happens a lot. Kind of scary. Just some food for thought. You might think that what people eat in other countries is weird, but that's really just because it's unfamiliar to you. If you were from that country, you would be like, this is totally normal. What do you mean you don't eat chicken feet? Like, that's totally normal. And for the record, eating chicken feet is a real thing. And the people that I worked with at Mikado ate chicken feet for dinner, kind of often. And I wasn't interested in it, but I had no problem with it. I just ate something else for dinner. That being said, people from other countries think things that we eat are weird, especially in like different religions. Like eating pork is considered a meat that's unclean, that's not worthy of human consumption, according to Muslims and other religions and countries. So the fact that we eat pork and bacon and pork chops and all that jazz, like we're seen as we're dirty. Eating beef is considered disrespectful by Hindus because Hindus believe that cows should be kind of worshipped. They're not something for consumption. They're something for providing like dairy products and sustenance, and they don't believe in eating them. People who practice Judaism will not combine meat and dairy products. That's what they mean by kosher. Many cultures are strictly vegetarian. They don't believe in eating animals at all. But then there are countries that eat all kinds of meats and insects. So it's just kind of like keep an open mind. Don't make fun of people for things that they eat that's like, like part of their culture. Be open-minded. Really, really put yourself out there. That makes your life much more colorful and interesting, as opposed to like making fun of something or saying that looks gross. Like, give it a shot. Who cares? Be the bigger person. Be worldly. Okay, so Chinese zodiac. The Chinese zodiac is a cycle of 12 years, where each year is represented by one of 12 animals. It differs from 12-month astrology, in which I am a Libra, other people are Scorpios, Taurus, what have you. I was born in 1993, making me and anyone else born in 1993 a rooster. In the order of the 12 animals in the zodiac, my God. Whew. The order of the 12 animals in the zodiac is based on the story of the Great Race. All of the animals of the zodiac raced to the Jade Emperor to become one of the 12 animals in the zodiac. They had to cross a river. So there's a whole story about all of these animals crossing the river and the clever ways in which they did it, or the not so clever ways in which they did it. So if you want to read the full story, it's linked at the top here. I think it might also be linked on the Google Doc. If not, I may have a bonus reading session on Friday. I have a picture book that I bought of the Great Race. It does a really good job of telling the story, and the art is very pretty. So it's very much a possibility of me doing. So these are the zodiacs. So I am a rooster. I know a lot of you are probably a monkey, maybe a goat. You might also be a rooster. Hey, look at that. My Beyonce is a dog. My dad, I remember, is a horse. I think my mom's a snake, and my sister is a rabbit. She's 99. So yeah. So then if you click on this link here, it'll bring you to a website that will tell you all about your sign. It will tell you about your sign, any other signs. It'll tell you about Chinese New Year, different talismans that you could get, what your luck's going to be like this year. I feel like we're all very unlucky this year. Such and so on. So you can do that for fun if you're interested. Okay, so the book is American Born Chinese. It follows 3 narrators. So the first is Sun Wukong, aka the Monkey King. He's right here. Jin Wang, which is here, and Qin Qi, who's a super stereotyped Chinese person, and we'll get into talking about him. So they rotate through these 3 storylines until it all ties up in a cool plot twist at the end. So it goes in this order. So it'll go Monkey King, Jin Wang, Qin Qi, Monkey King, Jin Wang, Qin Qi, over and over until we finish. I think it's 9 chapters. It's written by Jean Luen Yang, whose biography contributes a lot to Jin's story. So he went through a lot of the same things that Jin goes through in the book. It's a graphic novel, so we'll do some practice so you know how to read a graphic novel in case you've never read like a comic book before. It is a little different from a manga if you've read a manga, because in manga you read the book like backwards, like it's right to left instead of left. It's right to left instead of left to right, and we'll go over it. Okay, so our first character is the Monkey King. He's super cool. He is probably the most beloved fictional character in the Eastern world. He's like the Asian Mickey Mouse, only without the squeaky voice and corporate sponsorship. So these pictures are actually pictures pulled from different media. So if you've seen RWBY, this is Monkey King from that. He's Sun Wukong. I don't remember his name. It's been a while since I've seen that anime, but I don't remember his name, but he's based on the Monkey King. He has the staff, he has the monkey tail. He gets made fun of a lot for being this type of person, which is like an animal person. They make fun of them in the anime. This is him in Dota, which is a game that I used to play and got super excited when he was released because he's really cool. This is him in League of Legends, and this is him in a comic book. So he's in a lot of things. He is very, very popular. If you mention the Monkey King to anyone from East Asia, they will all know who he is. Goku from Dragon Ball Z was based off of him. And this is all from a book that was written in the 16th century. In 1592, this book was written, and it's still famous. And the reason is he gets made fun of for being a monkey in every single situation. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is how he was born. He didn't choose to be a monkey, but he is. And so he gets disrespected a lot for it, and he gets mad, and then he, proves them wrong. And that's really what it is. That's what we as people love. We love the person that's told that they can't do something that then rises up and then proves them wrong. Like that's our shtick. We all humans love stories like that. It's just empowering and it's cool. And we've all experienced things where people will hate on you, and then you are like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And it feels good when you do. So it's cool. In the book, and also in general, this is actually like his legend. He was born from a rock. His eyes flashed rays of light, and all of heaven took notice. But they were like, what the heck was that? And then they looked down, they're like, oh, it's just a monkey. No problem. He fights the tiger spirit that was inhabiting this mountain, and then he takes over, and he has his own little like community of monkeys in the mountains. He's very, very smart. He is invulnerable, which means he can't be like cut or like physically injured, and he's immortal. So not only can he not be physically injured, he also can't die of natural causes. He's immortal. He is mischievous like most monkeys, so he's smart and he's like tricky. So he'll like play pranks on people. He like convinces people to do things for him. Like he's got a good shtick. He's quick to anger though. He's self-centered, and he kind of has a Napoleon complex, meaning he's a small guy. He's a monkey. He doesn't like being made fun of for being a monkey. He will get mad. He will get very mad and very defensive. He actually bullied someone into giving him a magic cudgel, which is the staff you see in all his pictures. So in this picture, it's this. In the other pictures, it's this thing, this big guy, it's this thing, it's this thing, and he's spinning his in this one. That's a big part of who he is this cudgel. Oops. Overall, he's very cool, he's very witty, and he's very relatable. You'll like his chapters because they're funny. They're interesting. They give you a little Chinese legends and culture with them. It's a fun set of chapters. Okay, Jin Wang. He's kind of like the anchor to the book. He's what the whole story is really centered around. So even though we have these two other characters, Jin is where everything comes together. So he was born in the United States to Chinese immigrant parents. So his parents are from China. They moved independently of each other to the U.S. and went to college. And they were both in college when they met each other, and then love blossomed and whatnot. And they got married, and they had Jin. And Jin grew up in Chinatown, San Francisco, California. We'll actually talk about Chinatown and San Francisco because it's actually really cool. He speaks both Mandarin Chinese and English, so he's bilingual. He loves Transformers as a kid, which is actually really important to his character. He's very insecure. We watch him develop from a 10-year-old to a teenager, and he has a big-time identity crisis as a teenager. It kind of starts when he's a little kid, and then it builds on itself. His experiences in school reflect what the author Gene Yang went through, and his name is even how Gene's name would be misspelled and still is. So in an interview, Gene said that his first name would be spelled Jin, even though Gene is very much an American name. And Yang would often be misspelled as Wang. So he kind of has these two names, and he just combines them together and makes this character. Okay, this is a character that we're going to talk way more in depth about because he makes people very uncomfortable, which he should, and it's important to talk about him on a critical level. So he's a heavily stereotyped version of a Chinese person. His name in and of itself is a racial slur for Chinese people. So Chink is a racial slur. If it's Chinky, describes somebody who has squinty eyes. Bad. Don't ever use those words. It's bad. He is cousins with this kid Danny, who is a typical white American teenage boy. So we'll see him. We'll compare the two of them together. If he makes you feel uncomfortable, Chinky, you're feeling the right way. Nobody should really feel like he's cute or he's cool. Like he makes you feel weird. Like this is very much wrong. But we'll talk about him more when we get to the next chapter. Okay, so reading graphic novels. So this is just a couple of like little terms so that way you know what I'm talking about when I'm either reading the book or we're talking or we're answering questions. So the big thing that I'm going to use a lot is panel. So a panel is going to be like these little sections of images. So this whole thing is a panel, this whole thing is a panel, and this whole thing is a panel. So where the blue arrows are pointing, these are 3 panels. The border that lines each of the panels is called a frame. So you can have different frames for different panels depending on what you're trying to depict. And then the spaces between the framed panels are gutters. Sometimes the gutters are used as a way to kind of almost break the fourth wall. So sometimes there will be a character who will be like on this side of the gutter, and then the other half of them is on this side, like they're holding the gutter like it's a real thing. So it's a space between the panels. So it's supposed to separate the panels out. Oops. Okay, how do I read the panels of a graphic novel? Top to bottom, left to right. Top to bottom, left to right. So you start at the top, you go left to right, and then you move down, left to right, down, left to right, down, left to right. So then when we go to speech bubbles, it's the same way. So top to bottom, left to right. So if we start here, the next one we're going to read is below, bottom. Then we go left to right, bottom, 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 bottom. Okay, top to bottom, left to right. You're always going to go you're always going to go this direction before you go in this direction. Cool. Just some types of text in a graphic novel. So a speech bubble you've definitely seen before, but it's just where the dialogue spoken by different characters in a scene. These might have different borders based on what based on the ways in which a character is speaking. So this would just be like regular speech, like how I'm talking. This would be me whispering. I'm trying to talk a lot lower. And this would be if I was yelling. So if you're mad or you're like having an outburst, this kind. Similarly is the thought bubble. Nobody else hears this except for the character and the reader. So it's the internal dialogue. So we need to know what they're thinking, so we put it in a thought bubble. Sometimes it contains words, sometimes it contains pictures. Special effects sounds. So these would be things like over here, pow, 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 kapow, pow, pow, click, click. Ha ha is also one because laughing is a sound, not necessarily a word. They aren't normally enclosed in any kind of bubble because it's coming from the scene. So it's kind of always worked into the environment somehow. A caption, finally, is a box that narrates the story, gives details on the background and setting of a scene. So in a lot of like Superman comics, you'll see, meanwhile, and then we have, so we meet again, my dear doctor. And then there are things like this where it says like, see issue 212 edition, whatever. So there's actually going to be things like this in the book very early on. So you're going to want to make sure that you're reading every piece. Okay, just some things to keep in mind. Graphic novels mean you not only have to read the speech bubbles, but also the images. Most of the action taking place will happen in the pictures, not in a speech bubble. So read both for full effect. It's similar how in movies or TV there may not be any dialogue and you just have to read the action in order to understand what's going on. So in this image over here, like most of the action, most of the way we're going to understand what's happening is in the actual picture, not in these little speech bubbles. So your rampage ends here, Doomsday, even if it kills me. So we know he's fighting some guy named Doomsday, and Doomsday's been on a rampage from this, and Superman is willing to die. But we also see just how tough Doomsday is. We see that they're in the middle of fighting. We see that he's got his head punched over here just based on that, and that Doomsday is yelling. We also have crack, thoom. So we got, they're punching each other based on this. And the ground is breaking, and we get a real sense of the intensity of it. A second version is this has no dialogue at all, but we can read that Harley Quinn is about to WWE smackdown this man, and he is terrified. Look at the terror in his face. He's on the ground, so we know that he's losing and she's winning. We know that people are really rooting for Harley Quinn to win, too. This is a very positive looking crowd that are very into it, and it's big. So she has a big audience. She's popular. And those are just things that we can read from the picture. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's important to do both. You have to read text and you have to read picture. Okay? And that is it for the guided notes. So then the very last thing you have to do is you're going to go to ABC Vocab 1. On the sheet, I have given you a set of 6 words. The first one is done for you. The words are listed on the left, the part of speech is listed, and I give you an example sentence. So what you have to do is you have to find the definition and 2 synonyms and plug them in. Then once you're finished there, you're going to use the words and fill in the following blanks. Okay? So you make sure you're reading the whole sentence and then filling in the blanks. Okie dokie, that's all I got. So make sure you have everything checked off of your list for your agenda. So you should have the do now completed, you should have the guided notes completed, and you should have the vocab completed, and then you can hit turn in. Okay, bye guys, have a great day. I don't believe this is due until Thursday. So I believe you have 2 days. There will be new work posted on Wednesday, and that won't be due until Friday, I believe. Okay? All right. See you guys later.